Good morning. Welcome to Morning Coffee with Brigid. My name is Brigid, and happy Sunday. It is Sunday morning here, a little cloudier. So, but although I do see some blue sky peeking through, so I think it's going to be, I think we're supposed to get maybe possibly a little rain later today, but I don't think it's going to be a total washout. I actually can't complain about the last few days. I think I was raving about the weather yesterday morning, and it's just been really nice. I've been able to leave the windows open. I haven't had to worry about putting air conditioning on. Of course, I think by later this week, it's going to get up to probably like, I don't know. Good morning, Sam. Probably in centigrade terms, later this week, it's going to get up to around 35, so it's going to be too warm. But right now it's just perfect. So even though it's cloudy, I'm totally not complaining about things. It's been a very active week. Certainly one of the lessons I've had this week, and that's come up in a number of places. And going to listen to this on my afternoon walk. That's right. So good afternoon to you, because yes, you're in the UK, and so this is definitely a much more convenient time. And hello, JR. I see that you joined me this morning. It's good to see you here. So I was just talking about how it's kind of an overcast day, but this weather here is absolutely perfect. Again, I'm not looking forward to the hot weather at the end of the week, but right now, I'm definitely enjoying this very kind of, cool kind of mornings where I could get up and, I am seeing actually some sun peeking through there. So it's actually really, really quite nice today. And I was just starting to say that I've been having a very, very busy week. I think one of the lessons that I've sort of had around this week was the fact that there's been a lot of, certainly, and I've talked already, so I won't repeat myself about the planetary configuration on the 3rd, but it seemed to give a lot of people a jolt in a lot of different ways. And I think one of the tests that I've noticed a lot of people are having this week are definitely around whether or not, how important money is to the value equation. I remember I remember I had done a reading, because I was having a little bit of a freak out about this earlier this month, as I've already said. But I remember that when I did, there's a certain type of tarot reading that you can do that has to do with what your financial strategy has to be. And I had done that reading for myself. And the outcome of it was, you need to think about values other than money. And when you're looking to try to you're like, that's not helpful at all, right? I need to know something other than that, the very practical side of you. But that is actually what the lesson has been. Where does money fit in? And by the way, I don't want to make it sound like people who choose money, or people who say, well, I have chosen to get that extra job. I have chosen, like they're doing a bad or a wrong thing. Everybody has to do what is right for them. So, and sometimes we need to go back to something, because there's a lot of South Node energy around well, forget it, I'm just going to go back and get a job, because that's like literally, and Pluto comes up a lot too. So it's kind of like Pluto right now is retrograding through Aquarius and is going to head back into Capricorn very briefly. So I feel like there's going to be a whole lot of people saying, I don't know if I can do this. I really should just go back to doing the regular 9-to-5 thing because it's safer. And again, people can make that decision. It's not that, anybody who said that you're betraying yourself or something. Because the thing is, if it turns out that that's not right for you, it'll come around again. There's no limit to the amount of times that question can come up and come around. And I just felt, for me at least, that the answer kept proving itself to be, where I was offered an opportunity, it's like, yeah, you could go back and you could pick up a job and you could make this regular salary or whatever it is. But, and I could have done it at home, in theory, on my own terms. Sometimes I find that even though that's another thing I'm hearing from a number of different people, is that they will go into a situation thinking, okay, well, I'm working from home, or I'm working close by, or something's happening where I feel like like it meets my requirements. Like I can have a balance. Like, okay, I only have to work X number of hours. I'm, or I can do it remotely, and all this kind of stuff. And then when they get in the actual situation, or they pick up a new job in their field. This was something from like last week. I remember somebody saying to me that or maybe it was this week. Anyway, I had gotten a message from somebody who was talking about they had, when this person wanted to, would you be willing to share how you do the financial reading on yourself? I'd like to give this a try. Been unemployed since 2020. Wow. Oh yeah, that's sure. I will tell you exactly how I do that reading. And the thing is, I take it from a particular book that I have. So what I could do is I could take a picture of the outcome page and I could post that. But basically the way you do that reading is you basically shuffle your cards and you draw 7 and you put them in a line. Now you're not actually reading the cards. The meaning of the cards does not matter. What you want to do is take the numbers on the cards. So for the minor arcana, you will be taking the specific numbers. And then any card that is a court card counts as 10. And if you get a major arcana, it will be the number on that card is the one that you will use. And then you add all those numbers together, kind of like you would in a numerology if you were doing like your birth number or your destiny number or whatever it is. When you would take the birth date, add all the numbers up, and then reduce it down to a number between 1 and 10. Okay, and once you got it reduced down to that number, so you'll add up, let's just say your final number when you add everything up is 25, and then you take the 2 plus 5 and you add it up and it makes 7. So now you're looking at the Chariot, because in the list that I was given, it's basically like, okay, this is your strategy based on the number that comes out. And I think the one I had gotten it might have been a 5. So I think it was the Hierophant, and the Hierophant was, you need to focus on your values more than on money. And so, yeah, so what I'll do is I will post that list here to IG. I'll see if hopefully I can get a picture of it. If not, I'll try to take it in 2 pieces so you can get both halves of the list. So, yeah, I will totally do that. And it's not a difficult reading to do at all. It doesn't require you to actually, like I said, the meaning of the cards doesn't mean anything. So, and I'll rewrite the instructions for it. So, yeah, totally happy to do that. But that was the thing. Yes, you're totally welcome. Absolutely. And so, yeah, so that is the, so that has been a big thing for people. And sometimes when people have chosen, at least in 2 or 3 cases that I've talked to people, when they've chosen the money thing over what we'll call the authenticity thing. Okay. And when I say authenticity, I don't want to mean that people who get a job for money are being inauthentic. I mean, that doesn't sound quite right. Maybe what I mean more is that you're following the heart thing. Because sometimes when we follow our heart, think about it. Like if you want to be a writer, or if you want to be an artist, or if you want people to say to you, yeah, but you can't make money at that. That's a lot of times people are shooed away from that kind of stuff because you can't make money at that. Well, I mean, you can make money at it. It's just you need to be creative about how you're doing it. But what the work that's involved in that is not always the type of work that someone wants to do, or that maybe that they're ready for. I mean, sometimes people can hire people to do this kind of work if they have money already. But if you don't have money already, then, then that's hard. It's especially if you don't have any kind of support, if you can't get any kind of, financial support from the government or anything. Like people who are fired from their job in the U.S. can get unemployment. But you only get it for, I think it's like 6 months, and then maybe there's usually just a time period where it's assumed you're gonna go out and get another job, right? And I know in the UK there's the whole thing around benefits and how that's supposed to be and all that. So yeah, but we don't typically in the USA when you're out of work, you're out of healthcare, and you're out of and if you haven't lost your job, if you've chosen to leave, then you don't get any kind of benefit. So it's a very tough thing, and it's understandable why people would want to go back and pick up another job. But I had somebody had spoken to me last week who had said that when we had talked about their job situation and about how unhappy they were, I said, well, this is the time before you jump into something new to sit down and say, okay, now I need to figure out what it is that I really want. And it's interesting because people have a real hard time doing that. It's like trying to figure out what you really want is, it's just a very, very, it's amazing how many people will not be happy with where they are, but people just literally don't know. And there's all kinds, there's a variety of ways that manifests itself. So there may be people, for instance, okay, if they've been a parent for many, many years and they've identified with raising their children, okay, especially, this is women I'm thinking of particularly, but, doesn't necessarily have to be, I guess. But they might, let's just say all their children are grown up. It's the empty nest thing. Now they're home by themselves. And now it's time to figure out who they are. Okay, well, what are you going to do with your life now? Because they still want to be very, very intimately involved in their kids' lives. And again, it's not that obviously, you're, okay, you guys are gone. Well, never going to see you again. It's not like sometimes what you'll get with animals. They'll grow up and then they're just gone, and you're on your own after that, right? But I mean, families do well in theory. I mean, not all families stick together, but assuming that they did, okay, that just because you are an adult doesn't mean you've stopped connecting with your parents, right? And you may even still, I don't know, there's still situations where people need help from their parents, or maybe they still live with their parents for a while. This is a very expensive time to live, so a lot of people still do that. And, so it's not like you're 18 and you're out of their life. But the thing is, when you are, but a lot of times too, when children are grown, a lot of times they still want to do for their kids maybe the way that they did when they were younger, when they were not adults. Okay, even if they've got university degrees, even if they've got things, it's like they still want to do things. And it's and I've said to people in those cases too, okay, well, what about you? Like what about you? Like who are you? What do you want to do independent of being, say, a mom? Okay, what do you want to do? And they're just like, well, but that's just what I am. I'm a mom. They don't, there's just nothing outside of that for them. So when they're no longer serving the mom function in the same way that they did when they were raising children, then it becomes like, well, I don't know who I am. I don't know what to do with myself. Okay. That's one example of where people can run into this problem. If we have worked very, very stressful jobs for years, and then we decide, okay, I'm more interested in my freedom. I'm leaving this grind behind. It can actually be scary to do that, because freedom is a scary thing. Everybody talks about wanting to be free, and once we have it, it's nice. But the downside of it is we have to find a different way to do things because we're not doing things the traditional way. And when we don't know, when we're in that new territory, it may be hard. And, obviously there's bills due, you got to pay the mortgage or the rent, or you got to pay the utilities, you got to pay if you have credit card debt, you got to pay everything, right? So, yeah, we have to make decisions about, okay, well, to what degree do I have to compromise to have the income that I need to do what I'm doing? And so, but again, when we make those compromises, then it becomes, the question is, if we wake up every day and feel like, feel drained or then we kind of remember maybe why we stopped doing it. And so I feel like a lot of people are being faced with these kinds of choices. Or in another case where I think somebody was, there was a job, jumped into another job very much like the one they had left, thinking that a new company was going to be better. Typically, new companies are not better. They're just another version of the same thing. And what corporations tend to do, and even small businesses, they tend to kind of start to bleed in on your personal life. It becomes this thing of, they may hire you and say, oh yes, we value work-life balance. We only, you only need to work 8 hours a day. You're not obliged to do any more than that. It's this thing. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, really in your job you need to do 10 hours. Well, really in this you need to do that. Then you start getting texts on the weekends. Then you start getting, and then all of a sudden your space is encroached on, because now that you belong to that company, it's like your life belongs to them. And when you are valuing your freedom, then you may be like, hey, bugger off, like, like, stay out of my space. But it's very hard because that is the expectation in a lot of ways. So it's all these things that have to be kind of weighed and balanced. And I feel like for some reason, a lot of the challenges that are coming up right now, I mean, we know Uranus is in Taurus, right? But there's and Taurus, of course, being the card of the area of finances and stable finances and things like that. And Uranus being like the tower, like just coming in and messing everything up. And of course, Uranus, because being how far away it is from the sun, it stays in a sign for a really long time. I'm looking forward to it moving into Gemini. But for right now, it's like, yeah, it creates, there's like a chaos that's created there. And the chaos there, I said that the opportunity of that chaos is to say, okay, what is it that you want? And again, even if you decide at this moment that this is not something that you want, if you say, no, I really finding, yes, I like my freedom, but I need the stability of a job, that's okay. If it's not right for you, at some point, the question will be posed again. Okay, are you still okay with this? And at that point, again, I tell people who are in that position, like, every time, and I've told multiple people this month, is like, okay, this is the time when you want to start thinking about, start dreaming about where it is you want to be. If you've got the stable job, start dreaming about where it is that you want to be. Because at some point, this question will come up again. It will come around again because the same issues will come around again. And, just because we know we need to make a change doesn't always mean we're ready to make it right away. And you can't fault people for not doing it. Sometimes we look over the cliff and we're like, no thanks, I'm not ready to jump yet. Even knowing that I'm going to be, that you have to trust that you're going to be caught. And that doesn't, for some people, that is terrifying. I mean, for me, that's literally terrifying. I don't understand how people do bungee jumping and stuff like that. I'm just like, I can't even, let me tell you, when I've been, when I've been on mountain hikes and things like that, I think the last real true mountain hike I've been on, I mean, I have been on, big hills. New Jersey, I guess we have some things that are sort of like mountains, but where I've really been up on a high peak somewhere has been in California, and that was up in Lassen Volcanic Park, which is right near Mount Shasta. And I had, I went there with my family. This was probably, I think it was like probably almost 20 years ago now. It was a long time ago. And I remember because my father was still alive and he was still mobile. He could still walk. Both my parents were still able to walk very well. And we went up there, and I remember walking, you're 14,000 feet up, and there's no railing on the side. Now, this is just walking. I can't imagine how people drive on these roads, okay? And then, inevitably, when you're driving on these mountain roads, somebody gets behind you. I mean, I would never do the driving. There's just no way to do the driving. But they get, like, if they're a local, and you're, like, doing the speed limit, they get right on your butt, and they start, like, leaning on their horn, like, come on, go faster. And literally, it's like, there's, like, nothing between you and dropping off, however many thousands of feet. One of my nephews actually used to do firefighting in Oregon, and he would talk about having to take an entire fire truck up those roads and then back it all the way down the mountain. I'm like, okay, those are some driving skills. And that would be, there's just no way. I'd just be stuck there. I would just sit there and cry. There's just no way I'd be able to do it. Because I have trouble on lesser roads like that. But when I was walking up there, I mean, literally my fear of heights was such that I'm like, oh my God. People are like, look at the view. I'm like, no, I'm not looking at it. I literally had to have my brother-in-law stand on the other side of me so that I could walk up the cliff and not be totally freaked out by the time we got up to where the volcanic area was. And of course, being mountains, that in middle of August, there's snow up there. So, there wasn't a whole lot of snow, but we were throwing snowballs at each other and stuff. So it was kind of fun. Not on the mountain passes. Once we got up to the areas that were a little more level, then it was like, yeah, getting up to the sulfur pits that they had up there. It's really interesting. But yeah, so yeah, point being, not everybody is a fan of taking those kinds of risks. And so, and oftentimes it takes a period of time of getting used to being in that space and realizing that nothing terrible is going to happen to you. It's being in that space and recognizing that, you kind of look at it and you go, oh no, I'm not going to have any money. I'm going to be broke. I'm going to be homeless. I'm going to be this. I'm going to be that. And then finding in the end that that's not what happens at all. Somehow the income comes in. Somehow people turn up. Somehow clients turn up. Somehow, and again, it's not that you don't have to put any work in. I mean, obviously, but you have to rethink how you're doing the work and what you're going to do and where you need to push your comfort zone. North Node energy, which is right now, I know mine is certainly over the 10th house, but it's over, I want to say the North Node is over, it's on the Aries Libra axis right now. And so, and the North Node is, Aries is about action, okay? So North Node is pushing us towards what's new for us. It's about moving towards a space where we are able to, where we're working on manifesting, we're working on doing stuff, taking action, and not being passive. Like when we want something, we need to go for it. Okay, so it's that kind of energy. So, but again, like all changes, that's why I often talk about with transition, when you have somebody who's in crisis, you can't always assume that, well, this person just needs to get on with it and do this or do that. You can't really say that. It all depends on where you're at. I was reminded of a situation probably, this was a long time ago, this was in the 1990s, when I was married and it was very clear that things were going south. And I mean, truthfully, they were going south from day one, but certain things had happened, which I won't discuss here, that I remember talking to people at work who were, I considered friends, and they were like, you need to get that heck out of this marriage. Seriously, there is no saving this marriage. You need to get out of it. But even knowing that intellectually at the time, I was not ready to go. I was thinking about all those things, but what about the money? We had cats. I was like, what's going to happen with the cats? I'm not letting him take any of those cats. In the end, I ended up with all of them when we did split up, but it was what are you gonna, you know that something's not right, and yet somehow you live with the thing that's not right because there's just another part of you that's not ready. Okay, and that's about what it is, about negotiating that in-between space. And there's not a right or wrong way to do it. It's not, the universe is pushing you towards making the change, the only thing is, if it is the thing for you, if you are being called to make that change, it will be made for you at some point. So the thing you may hanging on to may suddenly be gone. Let's just say you get a job and you say, oh, I hate this job, but I have to hang on to it. Well, that job may disappear for whatever reason. If it's not meant for you anymore, or something may come up or happen where, and again, ideally you don't want that to be a catastrophic thing. But I think for some people it's just, they're just not ready. And you can't push people to be where they're not. And so everybody changes at their own pace, and some people adapt to change really well. Other people don't. And I mean, like I said, I talk to people a lot about changes and making transitions and what their next steps are in the kind of coaching that I do. But at the same time, it's some people, you tell them, they're just kind of like, yeah, I know I should do that. One of these days I'm going to do that, and they postpone it. But at the same time, you just have to say, people will jump when they're ready, when whatever it is inside of them or whatever the impetus is going to push them in that direction. So interesting. The idea of being kind of struggling with that space in between. But a lot of people, I think what I've found is that sometimes when something presents itself, this is the other thing too. We often feel that if an opportunity presents itself to us, let's just say we've been thinking about it, or even people who are praying, or however people try to manifest things for themselves. Something may pop up in front of them, and they go, "Aha! There's the answer to my prayer right there." And good morning, Sudha. So they think that's the answer to their prayer, coming up, and they say, "Oh, I needed an opportunity, and there it is." The thing is, sometimes the opportunity isn't the opportunity. It's a test. So if you are in the conundrum of, do I follow my heart in something that people tell me maybe doesn't make money or doesn't make so much money, and I could go back and take something that, does make money, but it doesn't give me any joy, or maybe, maybe there's things about it that you can get used to and think are okay, but you always feel like you're compromising. Okay. And, but you'll have the income and you'll have maybe the insurance and, you'll have the financial security. So there's that. So sometimes I think when there's a lot of worry about that, the universe will say, oh, okay, well, there's this, you could do this. And then the question becomes, but if you had wanted to commit yourself to a new path, it's actually almost serves more like a temptation. It's like, well, you could go over and take this thing over here and that would solve your financial problems. And, you don't have to worry about being your own boss and doing your own thing. And, it's fine. You can. And that's very, very tempting because it's just kind of like, yeah, you know what, and again, maybe that's where some people want to be. Because the other is when you don't know what you're doing, when it's new to you, it's a bit scary. And I can't tell you how many times I've seriously thought about going back to that. And I mean, then there are people who do it temporarily, like if you talk about artists and writers and people like that, for instance, who are between jobs, or actors who are between gigs, and then what they do is they bus tables, or they, work in a coffee shop. They do different things to make ends meet until the next thing comes along. And that's a thing too. I mean, everybody has a different road that they take. Good morning. So everybody has a different road that they take to get to where they need to go, and a different comfort level about their security, about where they're going. But it's just weird to me that the challenges lately seem to be around kind of challenging people to take an entirely new path. And I feel like people who kind of opted to kind of do the Pluto retrograde thing and kind of say, okay, well, no, I think I'm going to go back to what I think is more safe and secure. I feel like it's like, okay, well, this is the retrograde period. I think again, anybody can do whatever they want. We're all free to do whatever we want. But if that's not what the path is that they're on, if that's not the authentic path that they're on, I mean, and maybe it is. Again, I'm not making value judgments. If that's not the authentic path that they're on, then I feel like somebody's going to, like something's going to happen or occur. And so then the question will come up again. So it's almost like a test that you can continually retake. It's never, you never really get it wrong. It's just like at a certain point, you're just kind of like, okay, yeah, that's really authentically more what I want, but this is what I need right now. And that's, and that's a decision that people can make. But then if they find that decision afterwards, they think, oh my gosh, this is creating more stress. This is not what I wanted. Well, then you're faced with the decision again. So yeah, so it's just an interesting cycle around security that's going on right now for a lot of people. And I feel like probably the Pluto retrograde is largely responsible for that. Yeah. So anyway, just interesting thinking about that energy and how I've seen it manifest in not only my own life, but in the lives of people around me. That seems to be a theme. I'm trying to think how many people now where this has come up, but it's been quite a large number of people where this has come up. So yeah, it's but that seems to be how that retrograde energy is manifesting for people, and yeah, and I mean, and that's just the thing too about transitions. There's not necessarily a right or wrong answer. There's a right or wrong answer for you. I can't take my experience and say, well, I did this, so this is what you should do. I mean, that's everybody has their own path for their own reasons, based on their own responsibilities or what's on their plate, what they've got to get done. So let's do our reading for today and see what we've got. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so along this theme, the kind of thing that we've gotten, So our first card is the Outsider. And this is the Five of Pentacles. So yeah, this is definitely something concerned with financial security, among other things. This particular card emphasizes the aspect of the Five of Pentacles that is about being left out in the cold. Okay, the idea that there's this beautiful thing on the other side of this, but it feels like there's an obstacle. It's inaccessible to us. And we feel that we are not, we're not privileged enough to be in there or to be in this space that we want to be in. We're locked out. Now, the reason there's a small child on this card is because they say this is a childhood script. The idea that we want to do something and you can't. And truthfully, like I was just saying, these are the kinds of things when we have certain dreams and certain things we want to do, we may often be told as a children, well, that's just not practical. You can't make a living doing that. You can't, you want to do something creative. Well, now it's like people not going to university where the humanities are suffering because people say, well, you can't get a job in the humanities. I mean, unless you want to become a professor and there's no jobs for that. Well, that actually isn't true at all. But there's people who have that belief that they have to major in, it's like vocational training. I got to major in the thing that, I'm going to get my job in. People, I mean, unless you are studying something that is specifically connected to a profession, like a business degree or an accounting degree or something like that, maybe even like a psych degree or something, if you are thinking about becoming a counselor, or a psychiatrist, a lot of times we think about, I have to major in what my vocation is going to be. And probably that's driven a lot by the fact that school is so outrageously expensive now. It's not one of those things where you can go where a lot of it's state subsidized and you can spend time learning things like critical thinking and being creative and so forth, because that makes you a good citizen of whatever country or space that you belong to. Or if you study abroad, that this allows you to broaden your horizons about the world. We don't think that way now. We think very much in terms of economics. Yes, I'm paying a lot of money for this, so there has to be a return on my investment. I have to graduate and I have to have a job. That's certainly the thing. And of course, again, it starts when we're younger, when we have dreams about things we want to do, and people say, yeah, well, those dreams aren't practical. That's one example of how this works. You're shut out, maybe if you had, a lot of money and privilege, you could do this, but you don't. So you just have to figure something else out. And, that's true to some degree, but I think one of the things we learn out over time is how do you circumvent that script? How do you get rid of scripts? One of the things I was going to talk about today, but I'll probably talk about tomorrow, is the idea of what in human design, what they call the archetype of the Godhead. And these are 16 faces of what they call the Godhead in the human design system that talk about the different conditioning that we have, the different dogmas or ideas that we have about how life is, that are around mind, they're around form, they're around bonding and transformation. So these are the different scripts, and we automatically act from default by these ideas, and these may be the things that frustrate us. So anyway, I'll talk about that probably tomorrow. But our inner feeling of which we're unaware, this is the Chariot card, this is awareness. And as you can see, this is the person who, you just kind of see this shadow, this person who's almost blinded by a light, or they're actually like something's burning off and they're opening up, and you're seeing a very, very distinct face inside. So this is the idea of the coming into awareness of who you are. And I think the more we come into awareness of who we are, that's when these questions start to come up. You need to kind of think about, who am I? And it's interesting because the face in here that is appearing looks more like a Buddha face. So it's like the Buddha consciousness, the awakening to the fact that about the realities of life, and the realities of life are not, the harsh suffering, you have to, flagellate yourself and be worried about all these kinds of things all the time, and worried about, again, we need money to live and to do things, but we may privilege money to an extent that maybe we should not, or where the other thing we get concerned with is productivity. I'm not doing something productive all the time, so I'm a bad person, and you're not a bad person. You not doing stuff is I can't tell you how many times I have been running around doing 20 different things, and if I happen to sit down, because I have a question about something, the reading will, or I'll get my guides come in my head and they'll be like, will you just stop already? Just sit down and do nothing. Like literally sit down and do something mindless. You know, just stop driving yourself crazy, because you know, all this busyness, we think, oh, I'm doing something important here. And it's just like, sometimes it's just like, yeah, maybe you need to not be doing that. But we always think, no, we're doing something all the time. And the external feeling of which we are aware, yeah, this is the courage card. This is strength. And as I've mentioned, this is the idea of when you're in this rocky terrain, how are you going to grow? How is your situation going to flower in a situation that feels like it's a challenge? When it feels like, you know, what could possibly grow here? What could I possibly do? I'll hear that a lot of, you know, yeah, I could do that, but you know, nobody's interested in that. I can't do that. You know, oh, you know, I've tried that and it doesn't work, and you know, and really the question is, well, okay, if you've tried it one way and it's not worked, what's the different way that might work? You know, maybe that's not the way to do it. Maybe, and that's what you've learned. Good for you. That's what you've learned. Okay, maybe you don't want to do it this way, or maybe you didn't do it at the right time, or maybe you need to do more of it. You know. And our advice here is the traveling card. Okay, this is the Eight of Wands. So the Eight of Wands is about swift movement. I feel like, okay, a lot may be coming up now, because I feel like we're about to move into a time where things are going to be changing very, very quickly. And so when this card comes up, it's almost like the idea that we don't need to plan too much. We just need to go along with what's happening. And by just going along with what's happening, we will see how something is going to grow. A lot of times we try to make decisions on where we are right in this, what the information we have in this particular moment that we've reasoned out. We say, well, you know, and we also thinking about the future a lot. Well, you know, this is what I have right now, but I don't know what I'm going to have a week from now or 2 weeks from now. And yeah, that is a scary thing. I'm not going to lie. But then all of a sudden, and I can tell you this after doing this for 3 years now, is that I will frequently get into that space where I'll be like, oh, well, I don't know what my backup's going to be. I don't know what I'm going to do. And then all of a sudden, just all this stuff just out of the blue, all this stuff just starts to come in out of nowhere. And then all of a sudden, I have enough of what I need. And it's happened like every single month. I always, like, I get to a certain point and I'm like, okay, I'm going to be screwed this time. No. And then it works out for the next month. And then the next month and then the next month. And so to me, I have to take that as a sign that I'm on the right track. And that at some point, you know, I will figure out things that will provide, you know, a much longer term security for certain things. But you know, you always get what you need at the right time. It's really interesting how that works. And yeah, our ultimate outcome card is the moment to moment card. Okay, this is the Two of Pentacles, but this is definitely the idea of that you want to live in the present, really. The way that you balance a lot of different things is just to be in the moment and worry about what's important in that moment. And not get bogged down in, we spend a lot of time preparing for things. And I realize there's some survival mechanism to this, right? If you want to look at nature, if you look at the fact that when winter comes, you know, you immediately see like squirrels out there burying stuff. Like they bury stuff and make holes all over my yard. And the next thing I know, they're out there digging up where they've buried, you know, the different, you know, black walnuts and stuff that fall in my yard. They're digging them all out and they're putting them in different, you know, places. And but they're doing that to prepare, right? Because they can feel that, you know, winter's coming. There's going to be a scarcity of, you know, food as there is, as humans did previously. And I think a lot of our rituals and our traditions, our seasonal traditions are around that. Then we, you know, there's a certain amount of preparation that we do for things. And actually, it's interesting because some of the rituals, like especially Jólakirtin, I was thinking of, who is the Yule cat in Iceland there at Yule time. Basically, anybody who didn't have like new clothes or new socks, or didn't have, like, wasn't prepared for the winter, it's like they were in danger of being attacked or eaten by this giant Yule cat. And so it's almost like there was this idea of, you know, what's going to happen to you if you're not prepared for the long season. So yeah, we always do a certain amount of preparation, but a lot of times we over prepare because we want to control every potential for future circumstance, and you can't. You just, sometimes just by letting go and stop trying to control it, then you allow, this has to do with new opportunities coming in and not having to overplan. you know? So that seems to be the message today is, you know, live moment to moment. Again, it's not saying that people shouldn't work towards what they want. It doesn't mean that people shouldn't, you know, but a lot of times when we don't know what to do, again, we go back to what we know. And that's a very, very normal behavior. And I think after a while, if we do that and we're not satisfied with the result of what we did, then that's the thing that can drive us to making the change that we need to, or inspiring us to say, okay, you know what? I don't want to do it the old way anymore. I want to figure out a new way. And then we may be inspired as to what that new way is, or at least what we might try, like what might be the thing that works. But like I said, even doing your research and doing your homework and talking to people, I mean, all that stuff's good. Nothing wrong with any of that. But also there's always the possibility too that you could do all of that and say, well, I've done all the things, I've taken all the steps, and things may still be difficult because there's so many variables when you do that. But on the other hand, you're also very, very free, and you can make time for yourself and for living life on your own terms and doing what makes you happy. You know, it goes back to the thing of, if you're doing what makes you happy, you don't work a day in your life. And you know, what was always the old phrase that they used to have? Work smarter, not harder. And there's a certain thing to that, like to what degree do you, you know, and we often don't like people who don't work hard. We're like, yeah, somehow they're cheating the system, right? And they're working around. But really, it's like, if you can find a way, if your job isn't to go out every day, roll up your sleeves and swim against the current, you know, maybe you just want the wind to take you where it goes instead. You know, you don't, it's much easier, and you'll still be going somewhere. You know, or just learning kind of how to steer, you know. Or, you know, of course, the Zen argument is, are you steering it, or is it steering you? Is the wind doing the steering, or is it, are you steering the boat, or is the wind actually responsible for steering the boat? You know, there's the whole argument over who or what's doing what. But anyway, we're at 7:12, so I'm going to probably stop for now. And I want to say thank you so much for joining me. I hope that this is helpful. And Sam had asked me about that reading, so I will actually post something about that this morning. I have a bunch of readings I have to do today for the channel. I may be a little behind getting I have Libra through Pisces that I have to get up. I might be doing a couple of those tomorrow morning because, again, there was some unexpected things that have come up over the last couple of days. So I need to, I don't want to be rushing around. I kind of got the message this morning. Don't get into a mode of rushing around. Just, you know, do everything, take your time with everything. So, yeah. So anyway, I hope you all have a great Sunday. I hope you have a great start to the week. Oh, you're welcome, Sam. And, yeah, and then I will see all of you, hopefully tomorrow. And if not, like I said, the recording will be here on Instagram. I'll upload it to YouTube at some point today. And, yeah, so enjoy your Sunday and take care. Bye-bye.